Now to an exciting story of firsts to tell you about. The Royal Canadian Navy is sending a ship to Antarctica for the first time ever. On board is a Canadian team of climate scientists and a CBC News team. International climate correspondent Susan Ormiston is lucky enough to be going on special assignment, and she has more on the mission as the ship begins its voyage to the bottom of the world.
We are headed to Antarctica with HMCS Margaret Brooke, a naval vessel doing sort of science diplomacy, a collaboration between the Navy and 15 Canadian scientists, experts in polar regions who are doing 2 weeks or more of work in this icy continent ahead. We are transiting right now the Beagle Channel, named after a British ship, HMS Beagle, in the early 1800s. In fact, Charles Darwin was one person on the voyage through this very channel in 1833 as a young naturalist, remarking on seeing his first glaciers in this stunning landscape. The mission is all about science, supporting the science. So the Navy crew on board this vessel will be helping the scientists facilitate their experiments, going into small Zodiac boats to take measurements, to drill down for ice cores, to sample ice and water, and to go ashore to measure raised beaches and the levels of sea rise in this area. We talked to the commanding officer of the Margaret Brooke, Terry Scher, and here's how she described the mission.
This mission for the Royal Canadian Navy will be the first of any Royal Canadian naval ship to be heading as far south as we are right now. This is also the first time on this class of ship that we've embarked this many scientists. So we have 15 scientists from across federal and academic streams. We're really spreading our wings and seeing how we can help support polar science as a whole, not just Antarctic, but Arctic science.
The Antarctic is a key piece of unlocking the clues about climate change. It's a remote, relatively pristine area, kind of giant petri dish for experimentation. It helps regulate our climate because of its massive ice sheet, the largest ice sheet in the world, but which is, like in the Arctic, diminishing. The mass is going down, it's melting gradually, but significantly at an accelerated pace. In fact, in February, we learned that the ice between the Arctic and the Antarctic together was at a record low. So these are dramatic changes that makes it a prime time to go and get a baseline of what's happening in the South and compare it to our knowledge of the polar North. We spoke to David Hick. He is a chief scientist with Polar Knowledge Canada to describe the challenge.
In March of 2022, there was a day when both the North Pole and the South Pole regions were 40 degrees Celsius above normal. That's still happening. In fact, it's happening increasingly frequently, but it doesn't make the news anymore. And we should be very concerned about that we're normalizing these extreme changes that are taking place in the coldest parts of the world, or what we anticipate are the coldest parts of the world.
From here, we still have maybe 2 days before we even reach the tip of the Antarctic Peninsula. And to do that, we have to cross the Drake Passage, where the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Southern Oceans all converge in an open area, making it one of the roughest sea crossings in the world. We are expecting perhaps waves up to 4 meters. They can go as high as 12 meters. We expect to go into that area sometime in the early morning tomorrow. Antarctic is a very unusual place politically. It is owned by no country. Countries have made claims, but it is governed by an international treaty 65 years old. Those claims by countries are frozen in time for the moment. And it also forbids military activity, forbids mining, regulates fishing, and tries to preserve more areas for marine life. But it's under stress. We spoke to Terry Scher, the commanding officer here on the Margaret Brooke, about the curious nature of this mission.
We don't have any aspect of sovereignty down in Antarctica. That's not our That's not at all our mandate here. We've done everything possible, basically short of painting the ship white and red before we left Punta Arenas, to really make sure that we're seen as wanting to be collaborative and helping to support the science piece, and we're not at all down there as a quote-unquote warship. So
in a couple days' time, we will be in Antarctica, and we will be with those scientists as they go about madly trying to gather as much evidence as they can to analyze about the dramatic changes that are happening in the southernmost part of our world. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, transiting the Beagle Channel in southern Chile.